That was nice. Good evening, everyone. And I work in the public programs team here at ACMI. And before we kick off tonight's conversation, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather tonight, the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation. We would like to also acknowledge any others from other nations on this land here tonight. Just a few housekeeping things. If you do need to exit the room anytime during the conversation, if you just come over to this side here, there'll be an usher there to help you in and out the back door there. And also we'll have some question time at the end. So we'll be hovering around with some microphones. So if you can save your questions till then, that would be awesome. Now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce you to our host for this evening, Alistair Baldwin. A little bit about Alistair. Oh, everyone gets their own sting tonight. Sorry, guys. Alistair is a writer and comedian based in Naarm, Melbourne. He has written for The Weekly with Charlie Pickering and the upcoming second season of Get Crackin'. He is a recipient of a Wheeler Centre Hot Desk Fellowship for this year and has had commentary, criticism and satire published by SBS, Junkie, ACMI Ideas, Magazine and more. Last year, he completed an honours in screenwriting at VCA with a research focus in narrative prosthesis and disability representation on Australian screens. He is also a stand-up comic and improviser, performing in and producing shows across Melbourne. Thank you, Alistair.
Thank you. I'd just like to thank everyone for coming to this panel. I was very keen to make something like this happen, despite the two credits that I put in the first sentence of my bio. They're recent additions, and as little as like 5 months ago, I was someone attending comedy writing panels, just desperate to one day host them, and then to also to break into television. My idea with this panel is just to invite people whose work I like and respect and just try and get advice out of them. So in that sense, thank you all. Oh God. I just wanted to start this talk with this disclaimer that this won't be like funny. And if you're expecting stand-up, these chairs are too comfortable for that. I'll read this quote from E.B. and Catherine S. White. "Humour can be dissected as a frog can, but the thing dies in the process and the innards are discouraging to any but the purely scientific mind." So this chat, I want it to be a lot about process, a lot about how people work in comedy writing for the screen, how people negotiate that with other stuff like performance and directing, and it may just not be funny, so respect that, I suppose. So I will intro my panelists, but first just through playing some of their work.
Yeah. And can you make mine taller? Okay. Yeah, I'll send in a photo, but I just want to make my boobs look bigger first. Yeah. So, do I get a discount for ordering 2 body pillows? No, I don't need a hole in mine. No, this isn't a sex thing. It's an anniversary gift for my boyfriend. And I have a hole already. Just out of interest though, is it any cheaper if I do get a hole in mine?
Anna? Oh God, what? No.
This show is all about me and how I can cook delicious recipes that won't make McCartney shit her pants.
But food isn't just about not shitting your pants. It's also about happiness.
It's about health.
It's about controlling your life expectancy through what you put in your body so that you never die unexpectedly on a toilet.
We all want to live forever, and the best way to live forever is to quit sugar. So in today's episode, we're going sugar-free.
Wow, that has just gone everywhere, hasn't it?
Identity, Kate McLennan. And to our Australian audiences, Christ, we're up at Sparrow's Pub this morning. And Kate McCartney, look at this set.
I know, look at it. How did this happen?
I don't know, how did this happen?
What is that, a fucking
drone. What? And Kate McCartney, I'm so excited about this bright, breezy, fun new bright, breezy morning TV format.
Oh, me too, Kate McLennan, because we've taken things out of the Catering Show kitchen and into other parts of the house, like the toilet and the hostage crawl space, and of course, Couch Island.
That's right, because Get Crackin' isn't just about food, it's about everything.
Because we don't just not know about food, we not know about everything.
And our relaxed new 30-minute format means we have more time to penetrate the serious issues affecting you and your family.
Yes, such as lifestyle trends like pregnancy hula hooping, ombre lips, homosexuality, offshore detention centres, no, that's not going to work, and of course, the global pandemic of copper shit.
That's right, we're going to show you how to do stuff, make stuff, buy stuff, ingest stuff, avoid stuff, and best of all, fear stuff.
Because here at Get Crackin', we want you to know that you're never ever doing enough stuff.
Plus, we give money away to a poor person, but only if they answer within 3 rings.
Well, let's get started. Yes.
And then finally...
Now, joining me this morning on Wake Up to Yourself is our expert panel. Earlier this week, beloved Aboriginal man Uncle Stevie in a press conference referred to white people as white c***s. This has sparked outrage in the white community, with many calling for the removal of his uncle status and a public apology. Joining us is our expert panel, Andrew, Katrina and Brendan. Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Susie. Great to be here.
Now, Brendan, you're wearing a suit. What do you think?
Well, Susie, this may come as a surprise, but I actually agree.
Oh, what do you mean?
Well, I know a lot of white people. Warm, kind white people. And I say this with a lot of love, but white people are c***s. It was only yesterday that one of them stole my parking spot. You know, the audacity of these people.
Katrina, you're a woman. What do you think?
I wouldn't use words as strong as that. But I tend to agree.
Yeah, can you elaborate?
As a mother, I can. White people are c***s.
Right, okay. Andrew.
Well, I've never actually met a white person, but I do agree. White people, they're c***s.
Fantastic. So those are 4 clips, respectively, from Bleak, The Catering Show, Get Crackin', and the upcoming season of Black Comedy, which is coming out tomorrow. Yes, I think is a great way to introduce our guests. So I'd just like to throw to each of you, if you'd like to introduce yourself as simply or complexly as you'd like. And then I guess I'd be curious to hear what were the initial comedic texts which made you passionate about pursuing comedy? And on a related note, what were the texts which made that seem possible?
So do you want our names first and then to answer?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm the only one that people don't know. So now that my introduction is over, you can sort of just say names.
So, okay, so I'm going to say my name and then I'm going to talk about comedic texts, or I'm going to say my name and then pass it to the other
name
panellists.
And then comedic text.
Okay.
If that's...
I'm going to have to think because I haven't thought about this in ever. So, my name's Kate McCartney, and I think my comedic, probably my first comedic text would have been Warner Brothers cartoons, I think. Yeah.
Definitely. Any specific?
Yes. What's Opera Doc, and the one with the frog.
Yes.
And the Ring Cycle one. And there's a really good one by... I can't remember who it was, but it was the one where Daffy Duck, it's breaking down the fourth wall. I thought it was fucking genius when I was 5. And it still is genius. It's a really good piece of writing and really well animated.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Kate McLennan. The first...
Stanley and Rhoda. It's a kid's book. Rosemary Wells. Sorry.
I grew up reading... I liked sketch comedy when I was a kid. I liked Fast Forward when I was about 8, 9, 10, around that age range. But I had really funny uncles who would tell funny stories, and so they were kind of like the tradition of the joke in our family was something that was established quite early. And yeah, so just, and playing pranks on family members and stuff was something that, like I remember going to school when I was about 5, and after reading, it was around, you know, those Far Out, Brussels Sprout, all those kind of books and stuff, and going to school with, my dad got me to put my finger in a matchbox and then put it on cotton wool, and then we put that red mercurochrome or whatever it was from, you know, when you skin your knees, and put that, and, you know, went and showed people at show and tell that I'd cut my finger off. And so there was stuff like that's kind of where I sort of, so it's not so much text, but it was more oral kind of stuff, I suppose, that you should do this, and, you know, and then, you know, I found out that I could make people laugh doing that, and that kind of continued.
Yeah.
Is that a text?
I'm absolutely satisfied with that response.
Did I pass?
Definitely got the, like, pull my finger thing from my grandfather, who thought it was really funny to make us pull his finger, and he farted every time. It was really, it's really weird, and it made us laugh every time. I think in terms of actual, like, oh, this is a funny bit of thing that's not just a weird in-family joke, because families are fucking off the charts weird. I think Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, 1999 or 1998 in Billawheeler, which is in country Queensland. That was our first bit of thing that was like, oh, this is a funny thing that exists in a canon, except we didn't know what canon meant because we were 9 and younger. But yeah, I think that was the thing that I was like, oh, this is funny. Like, I watch this after school, not because I want to, or not because I have to, but because I want to, and it's funny. Yeah, and then that was probably like the first time I was like, oh, black things are funny. Yeah, and it wasn't like, oh, someone's pulling a finger. It's just like, oh, no, this is actually just a funny thing in the world that exists. And Will Smith was hot if you're a...
Yes.
If you're a 9-year-old.
Yes.
Don't.
Yeah.
No. I mean, you're not going to read into it, but it was what it was. Yeah.
If there's one thing to take away from this panel, it's that 1999 was his absolute peak. Physically, comedically. Moving on, I'd be curious, obviously, McLennan and McCartney, people are very familiar with, I guess, your shared dynamic voice. And I think that is something that people would be interested in hearing the origin of. So you both, I think, was it your first project together with Bleak?
Yes. Yes, it was. Yes, it was.
Fantastic. And that involved, obviously, McLennan, you were the protagonist, and McCartney, you were in a off-screen role.
Yeah.
But in order to, I guess, crowdfund that, there was a possible video, which I'll show now. And I'd love to...
Let's see how we've aged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Hi, I'm comedian Kate McLennan. And I'm attractive nobody Kate McCartney. 3 years ago, McCartney was photoshopping Chris Judd's face onto Powerade bottles, and I was working on Ben Elton's Live from Planet Earth.
Yeah, things were shit grim. So together we created a comedy series based on our experiences and named it Bleak.
We decided we'd make it into a web series because the internet is the future.
And then everyone was like,
You should make it into a TV show.
why don't you make it into a TV show?
Great TV show.
And we were like, yeah, fuck the internet, we want Logies.
And that was 1 year ago, and so far, no one has decided to make Bleak into a TV show. This country.
This country.
So safe, conservative, pedestrian.
You know why? They just want to sell dog food and washing powder.
Food and washing powder, that's all it is.
They care about.
It's disgusting.
Oh, no.
Oh, good.
No. No.
Oh, it's broken.
Yes. No.
Close your eyes. Shut the fuck up.
I was curious about... I was very keen to show this video because this is your first on-screen performance together, and emailing you in preparation for this show, you sort of... McLennan mentioned that this video was kind of key in the work that people now are most familiar about. I was wondering if you could speak to how this crowdfunding video came to be and how the response affected the direction that you sort of are now on.
Yeah, well, we'd been writing together for a little bit before we made that video, and so we put it together, and it was kind of around that time that like Amy Poehler and Tina Fey were doing like awards hosting and stuff, and so we made that video, and it was kind of the first time that we'd spoken on camera in our sort of kind of how we really felt about the TV industry. And
we'd both been working in TV previously in sort of a sporadic way, but we were in our 30s and we just had stopped caring.
Yeah, we're a bit jack of it, and so we thought, well, we'll just make something ourselves, and so we made this video. And then in making the video, when we put the video out, people really responded to that portion of the project
far
more so
than the web series itself.
bit of an Annette in that.
Yeah, it was just like that.
Yeah,
exactly like that. Yeah,
and so we kind of banked it. We sort of went, okay, people like us being on camera together, and they liked the jokes that were within that, and
that was the most honest we'd ever been with our voices, I think. That's weird to think that now because we're but that's probably the first time. Anyway,
we weren't writing to what we thought other people. We weren't writing for anyone else but ourselves, I suppose, and so then. We banked that information, and then when Bleak took so long to get up and it just didn't, like it was sort of years of dragging on, and we saw how immediate it could be to make a video and put it online and get this response, and so we thought, well, why don't we try and develop something with the two of us on camera? And we were sort of looking for a point of difference between the two of us and the food, like it was just when you'd been diagnosed with food intolerances, and so that's kind of... that was the next step. And so it sort of, it kicked it all off.
Do you think with a digital show rather than one on conventional broadcast television, gauging audience response is easier? Is it easier to tell, was it easier to tell with this video or the catering show how people felt about it than with Get Crackin'?
Easily. I feel like that video was more successful than Get Crackin' because people talked about it online, and it's like you got a response from people, whereas with Get Crackin' it's on TV, so people just sort of it went well. It's just that there wasn't nearly the, because of it being on iView and stuff, there just wasn't the shareability around it and stuff. There wasn't really an online conversation around it in the same way. So, that video and, like, the catering show and stuff, it's, when it came onto broadcast TV, we were both just like, oh.
Yeah, it's
because we were used to it being kind of international as well. We were used to having people kind of responding internationally, but there's they couldn't see it. No one's been able to see it.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever.
It's...
It's fine.
But there was an audience that established themselves around that possible campaign as well. There were people who, like, there were friends and family, and they really get on board, and then they followed us with the catering show, and then that catering show audience was really
kind of popped along.
Yeah, like it just sort of they felt like it feels like it's just a more of a give and take kind of relationship, whereas with TV, it is very, I don't know, there's a sense of removal, is that the right word? I don't know.
Removal.
Remove. whatever it is, just from, there's a distance. Yeah. So it's not as personal, I suppose.
Yeah, and that personal interaction was good in the initial stages, I guess, gauging what people liked. So I guess with Get Crackin', you're aware of what audiences connected with, and were like, even if TV doesn't have the immediacy of YouTube comments, you can sort of refer back to the finessing that happened.
It was certainly good from a notes perspective, or just a base level of having. I mean, the ABC's been amazing, but we did have a precedent for saying this is what people like, so you can, we have a feeling like our instincts are pretty good. Sometimes. I don't know. Yeah, so they will trust your instincts a bit more if there's an online precedent for your style. If there's Anyway.
Fantastic. Moving on, I'm keen to, I guess, delineate what are the things that fall under this amorphous panel theme of comedy writing on screen, and I want to sort of delve into the writer's room.
Yeah.
And clicking.
Yeah.
And I'd like to throw this over to Nayuka about how your experience working in that setup. How was the writer's room, I guess, structured? And also, how was that process in terms of ideas being generated in the room, I guess, selected for further development, and what was sort of solo work, what was collective work?
Great, I can speak on this solo. I think, I've been in a couple of writers' rooms now. I think black comedy is quite unique in the way that I think in a lot of writers' rooms I'm breaking the fourth wall. So when I first joined comedy, I thought it was going to be like 30 Rock. And I thought I was joining that scenario. And so I thought it was going to smell like farts, and you were just going to be in a room. And only half of that is correct. No, I think I had and still have, and I hope it still remains, a very romanticised idea of what it means to be in a writer's room, because actually the writer's room changes. Like, every writer's room is different. You step in and so like for black comedy, it's a very structured way in which you bring people into the progress or program or situation, and we all are chipping in and we all pitch in, but you're not like in this fighting room necessarily. So I think in some ways, and then other rooms are like, who can tell the best rape joke? Like, that is absolutely like some of the norms in other writers' rooms. It's like who can be the most terrible human being in the funniest way. So like every writer's room has a different way of operating. So in terms of black comedy, it was like, actually, this is just who can tell jokes in this particular format in the most funniest way. So I think we have, and I still have, very romanticised ideas of like this like 30 Rock style, but maybe that's, off into the sunset. But I still think, probably all comedians have this romanticised idea of their writer's room. And like, we all want to believe that, our fart jokes are the funniest, because they are. But I think it's different for every room. But some rooms are kind of toxic, some rooms are fucking amazing, but also some rooms are like, I'm not Tina Fey, you know? Yeah.
Yeah. And so talking about like pitching ideas in a sort of writer's room context, so for black comedy it's a sketch series.
Yeah.
How do you sort of bring a concept for a sketch to the table? What work do you do beforehand, and how do you actually in a room pitch a sketch in a way that people connect with it?
Oh yeah, totally. So some things just aren't a sketch. Like some things just need to be like Quentin Tarantino, like put it on the shelf, like get some funding for a short film. Like some things actually just aren't a sketch. So yeah, it's about figuring out like what is a sketch, what isn't a sketch, and like, because sketch comedy, I think most ideas probably do work. It's just like, is this a sketch? And that's like the biggest thing getting in the way. Like, what's the format for this joke? Like a lot of things, it was like, this is really funny, but this deserves like 3.5 hours of content.
Right. Yeah.
You know, like this is so funny, but it's not. Like we just don't have the time to do this. So it's like figuring out most things actually are really funny. I mean, some things just aren't funny. Yeah. But then it's also like when you're in the room and like someone chucks out like a shit idea and you're like, you just wait for someone else to say like, you know, I mean, you're just like waiting for it to blow over.
Absolutely. And so that sort of polite waiting etiquette while someone's joke bombs, you'd say that's 10 seconds, 15.
I'm just like, that's not funny. But are people real polite? Yeah, it depends on what the vibe is in the room. Yeah. Big time. I just don't. I think for the sake of the show, you're going to be like, no, that doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah.
That's not personal. That's not personal. But in the constraints of the show that we have, that's just not going to work with what we...
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, check your ego at the door. We're generating, we're writing.
No, you got to cop it on the chin. You're just going to be like, that's not funny for what we have. Just fuck off. Yeah.
So, in your experience, you're talking about something being funny, but is it funny in a way that you can compartmentalise to a 3-minute sketch versus something that blows out to something meriting an hour? In your experience, what makes something simple enough for a 3-minute sketch? What kind of ideas? I mean, is that...
I'm just carrying over the one. I don't know. Is there a formula for...
I certainly... I'm terrible at sketch writing, so I'm not the person to talk to. McLennan?
What do you reckon? What do you think?
It's like mainly just nose putty.
Yeah.
Just putting on a fake nose and...
But there's some stuff like...
Yeah.
We're talking about like sketches that like you'll have a sketch that, you know, that's like this, there's an issue, and then it's like, okay, well what's underneath that what's your take on that subverts that issue or that trend, or, you know, in our case it's usually a trend. And we were talking about this before. It's like, you know, and you kind of go, okay, so we're doing a sketch about I don't know, mud rooms, but then we're talking about housing affordability, which is that exactly something we're doing. So, you know, and then so there's funny stuff within that, but then there's also a sketch that we've done in our show that's just about a woman bringing in a haunted doll. And it's like, and there's no satirical point. There's no. It's just like
it just depends.
It's just shots of a doll.
Like, so it doesn't. Don't you think you need to have a bit of a blend?
It's actually very cultural from my perspective.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
I think it depends. Some ideas come from like sometimes they're just really super visual, and sometimes they're really filmic and like really visual, and that's how you kind of see something playing out. And other times it's like, okay, well, there's this issue I feel I'm jack of.
Yeah.
I want to write about it. How do
Yeah.
we reverse engineer from the point that I'm annoyed
Yeah.
about? You know, it kind of just
I think, sometimes, it is that reverse engineering. You're like, oh, I'm really sick of this shit, so I'm going to like start with a problem. But other times it's like you start from like the most absurd place.
Yeah.
And I think you just start where you start. Like it is where it is. I don't know. Sometimes it's fucking weird, but...
Yes.
That's what you're playing with the tension of the...
Yeah, exactly. And that makes it... I feel like that makes good content. Sorry. I feel like it does because it, you know...
There's a reprieve from...
Yeah. It's like music.
Yeah.
Just different bits in a piece of music makes it good.
Sometimes it's good.
Comedy is
and
beautiful
that's how
music.
it's done.
Sorry.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Nah, I'm right though.
Yes.
What do you think, Alistair? You've been real quiet.
Well, I just, I've been tasked with doing a panel explaining comedy, which in many ways is hard and weird to explain. And I'm sort of throwing curveballs at everyone, being like, how does someone be funny? And a lot of the time you can't fake it. It just happens.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, I guess, speaking to, talking about, I guess, the perspective. What are you trying to say? What satirical point are you making? And then layering that with absurdities too.
Yes.
Sort of, we can move on. So McLennan, when I was looking at your IMDb page under the writer tab,
Big time.
I presume everyone here is intimately familiar with the IMDb interface. But I kept seeing these credits for additional material under a writing credit. And I followed up with you, and you were sort of saying you've done a punch-up on a script. And I was curious, this is, I guess, theoretically a type of comedy writing which someone might be hired to do. People here might one day be hired to do. What is a punch-up, and how do you approach something where you weren't there for the generative stage of this idea, but how do you make it, good?
Yeah, so a punch-up's where you get employed to essentially write jokes. So you get presented with a script.
Real dull.
Yeah. And then
dull bit of material.
You see an opportunity for a joke and you just write options for that joke. I write options. Some people don't write options. Some people just do one joke. But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like if you're getting employed to do it, then you may as well just try and give as many jokes as you can. And because, as you said, you weren't there for the generating of the script. Usually a script will come to you where you can kind of read it, it comes fairly late in the piece, so it's probably the final layer that goes on after, it's that round shooting script stage. So the characters are pretty well formed, so they should be speaking to you off the page. You should get a sense of their voices, and you might get an idea from, a Bible might get sent to you, so you might get an idea of, this character's sort of similar to such and such, and, you kind of get an idea of where they sit stylistically and what their voice might be like. And, and so it's just writing joke options, and so you can sort of write jokes that, I try to give lots of different options so that I might write something that's really weird. I might write something that's a distinctly... I see an opportunity in a lot of the female characters, and usually the scripts that I get sent are by men, so I'll really go hard on the female characters, and usually the female characters are quite underwritten, so... There's plenty of room.
What you will.
There's space there, and so and it's just sort of giving a bit more colour to, and offering a bit more of a nuanced perspective, I suppose. And so just you might throw a few weird ones in there, just some that are a bit straighter. Might do some that are a bit wordier, some that are really simple. But if you're doing it, you know, you may as well go use, you know, as much time as you can commit to it. But like, I'll just also do stuff like, oh, it'd be funny to have that prop in the background, or, you know, just like any suggestion that you can see for comedic possibilities within the script that might not necessarily be just set up, you know, punchline jokes. Like, it could be costume stuff, or that's probably going too far. But anyway, I did it anyway. So that's kind of, and so you might get asked to do a punch-up on one script, and then, you know, so you may as well throw everything you've got at it, and then, you know, you get asked to do more scripts. And, and it's kind of fun, because, you know, you're just churning it out. And
I remember reading Diablo Cody's biography, and apparently she would get a lot of requests to punch up scripts written by men to be like, can you make this female character sassy like Juno? You know that film you wrote, can you just do that, but for my film? To what extent are you sort of at this stage in your career being approached to imbue your voice, or the voice of, you know, your version of Kate on Get Crackin'? I mean, with the particular shows, are people coming to you, and to what extent are you finding that balance between I'm providing something which is in line with this Bible I'm provided, or I'm offering something new because that's why they've sort of come to you specifically?
It's like there's part of you that sort of doesn't want to give everything away, because there's stuff that you think, well, that's mine and that's my story, or that's my personal experience, and I'm going to save that for my... And so there's some things that I'll hold back and know that that'll sit better in our show or whatever. There's also stuff that you can negotiate, so that, like, if any jokes that they don't use, then you...
they get returned to you.
Yeah, so that's
Lovely.
it. But that's an agent thing. You've got to get your agent onto that. But there's... but then someone said to me once, it's always stayed with me, it's like, you're never going to run out of ideas. So you may as well just do your best work and know that you will keep coming up with funny stuff. So, you know, it's... But, yeah, like, I don't know if... Like, I think that we definitely get approached... Like, and you get, you know, approached to do this as well. Like, it's that you get... Of course, you get approached to do stuff that's... They see you doing something and they think they can see that that's successful, or that that's resonated with certain people, and or that they just like what you say. And, yeah, and that's... You know, there's nothing wrong with that, but, you know, you can't just add a layer of, you know, McLennan and McCartney sass to something, and it's suddenly, you know, reinvented to, you know, hit a demographic of women who like Thermomixes or something. Like, it's not, it doesn't work like that. It's, you know, you can't be too cynical about it.
Yeah, and just... So when you are doing a punch-up and you're coming up with jokes and they don't get used, and then you get those jokes back, I haven't
used any of them.
If you don't get them back, then it's not like an equation, like, these are the ones we use.
But it'd also have to involve me watching the show to see if
Exactly.
any did get used. I'm like, I don't want to watch it.
You're not like you write them and you never hope to have to see them again.
Yeah.
Like, you hope they never see the light of day. Like, you've done them.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're out in the world now.
Yeah. You're not like, oh, I really like that weird, obscure thing. I hope I get to use that again. Like, you've written them and you hope no one ever sees your shame again. Like,
I feel that so deeply. You have no idea.
They're done in such a shame-filled moment. Yeah.
But you think you've written something really great, and then you read it later and go,
You're like, oh!
Yeah.
It's weird. It's a constant
never repeat.
cycle.
That was in context, and I hope everyone gets context, and I hope they decide that they were funny in that moment. Yeah. No one's ever like, this was brilliant. I hope I get to use this again. I don't know anyone who's ever been like...
Well, there was one visual that I'm so pleased that I kept writing into sketches and it never got used, and then I've been able to do it in the show, for our show, and I feel so happy about it.
finally got in.
Yeah, it's Guide Dog Money Box. Just
wonderful.
sitting next to her while you whittled a pipe, sitting next to you on a couch. I've been writing that since 2001. No, earlier, 1999. Great year. Will Smith's best year.
No one's ever hoped for that. Like, no one's ever been saving up on that one.
No, she has. I watched it and I was like, yes. My
And now
opus.
it's gone. It's gone.
That's all right. I'm fine with that.
You'll walk away from
You
this
just go, I'm
industry
done.
Find
now.
a new white whale to.
Yeah.
I had a joke about a duck.
It's great when you have to relive jokes, particularly if you're a writer, because, always works out.
Man, you just let them go.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm really passionate about
It can
this
happen,
duck
buddy.
joke.
It can happen. Don't lose hope on the duck.
I won't. I
Okay.
don't know. It was the wrong tone for Charlie, though. But anyway,
Did it land?
it landed in the room, but it was about.
Sure about the joke or the duck? That was very good. Very
No, tonight's not about me, but find me after. I'll regale you with this duck joke.
Okay.
It made
Oh,
headlines.
boy, I can't wait to hear it.
We're. Christ. Okay, McCartney.
Hello.
You obviously, well, forget Kraken. You, McLennan, and the lovely Hayden Guppy are directing the show together. But McCartney, you've done a lot of directing work outside, notably Edge of the Bush.
Yeah, not like a lot, but a bit. Not a lot.
Enough for this panel.
Okay.
I am just curious, I think, with this writing, it's interesting, screenwriting, it's not like a book, it's an intermediary document which has to be funneled through another person in order to be the finished product. And I'd be curious to get your perspective as someone who has, directed stuff that you've written, but then also directed words that someone else has written. What actually, for you as a director, translates? What can someone writing a comedic screenplay keep in mind in order to, I don't know, leave enough room for a director to impart, their touch, but also not leave enough of a gap that, it becomes them, like they're this auteur kind of co-opting?
Yeah. Well, I think it is. I used to think that you'd have to write really, really, really detailed big print, and that's not the case. Like I used to write, on problems, I'd write big print, setting up a scene about that long, and then I realised that's for another document. You don't have to do that in there. I think you just need to get the specifics of what you need in the scene in there. It's quite simply like if you need, in order to tell a story, if you need a kettle in there, you absolutely have to write that you need a kettle in the big print. Otherwise, the kettle will not be there on the day, and then your whole thing will be shot. Yeah. In terms of, I think it helps to have really worked on your characters ahead of time for the writing. I don't know. I think it's that the characters, and this is me forgetting what the question was.
No, that's
It's written right.
It is.
No,
I know,
no,
but
no,
I can't multitask like that. I can't read and talk to
word
two
for
different
word.
things.
I guess I'm.
From the page, it's.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
How do you go from being the person getting the direction, because you did Get Kraken, but then you also did the other one, the Bush one.
Edge of the Bush.
Yeah, how did you go from receiving direction to being the one getting, or to receiving it to be the one giving?
Behind it.
Yeah.
Oh, see, because I come from a visual background.
Is that okay? Am I allowed
Yes,
to ask
please,
that?
by all means, punch up my questions.
Because I come from a visual background, that's where I started. Like I started as an illustrator, kind of, and then an animator. Like I'm so used to being like, okay, I made this thing. There's that thing over there. This is the thing I made. Go look at the thing I made. Don't look at me.
Yeah.
I'm not the product.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're acting, you are the product.
Yeah.
And that's that doesn't sit especially well with me. I'm a lot more comfortable with it now, but so in terms of I struggle being the actor, but I like being the god of the world.
Yeah.
As a director, that's really fun.
It's a manipulation thing. Like we manipulate the space.
Yeah, exactly. You get to make all the decisions, and you know, if you're an actor, you have so little control over what ends up being on screen aside from your moment in that scene. Whereas being a director or putting the words in their mouth, the characters' words in their mouths, then I think it's just a lot more interesting and fun.
If you go from like Edo's show and knowing Edo and knowing her body of work, and then, so how did you approach that compared to something like Squinters, where you know, there were characters that you weren't familiar with, writers that you weren't familiar with, like how does, what were those processes?
It was the same process. I broke down every scene and I figured out what the character needed at the top of the scene, and I figured out how what they said and what they did within that scene aided that goal in terms of where they went in that story. With Edo, I mean, like, you know, you can kind of read the script and you sort of have a general idea of what it's going to sound like, and then it is, I mean, you know, it's, you know, and then it just she just does whatever she wants. And then you're just like, you're in the editor going, okay. And it's fine. Which is really funny. But like, with Squinters, it was a lot more of a process. It's a lot more of, okay, well, these are, I got an entire arc, but you know, I had to really study the scripts and find what was happening with each character in each scene really methodically, so that I could go into every scene and go, this is where you're at, where the characters are at. And that was, you know, for the most part, that was within the dialogue. It was there. It's just about reading it and finding it.
And so for you, the dialogue more so than the big print. I suppose with Squinters,
it was
just
all
a simple
dialogue.
setup.
Yeah, it was just a simple setup. Yeah, pretty much the dialogue.
And so when you are doing that stage of looking through this script, are you like have the opportunity to chat to the writer who worked on it, or is it something that I guess they're kind of taking as?
Yes, I did. I
worked
pretty heavily with them because they were writing so many. They just valued my input, so I worked with them on it.
Absolutely. Fantastic. We'll clip along. Fantastic. Now this is open to the panel. Yeah, I'll get my chance in the sun. But this is for the panel, and it's about everyone here has acted in shows they've helped write. What are the advantages of speaking your own words, and what are the drawbacks? Obviously, the main advantage is that you're right there, so they don't have to go out and find an actor. But I'd be curious to get people's thoughts, I guess, for people who maybe don't consider themselves actors first. What is it like working with your own material?
It's the fucking pits. It's like really weird. Yeah. No, it's really good. I love it. It's really, developmentally building. No, I think it's really good because from my perspective, like once you write something, you send it off, and because that's how I came into this world. Like you write it and then you send it off, and it's really chill. So it's actually really like I love getting edited. Like they rip it apart and they make it whole again. Yeah, and it's beautiful. But then when you're in it, it's a bit different. When you're in the thing that you've written, it's a bit of and like being on Get Crackin' would be a head fuck. I think being on the thing that you've written, if you've already entered the headspace where you're like, I've written it, it's fine, it's done. We just do what we need to do. I think it's actually fine. You get your direction and you do what the fuck needs to be done. I think that's really fine. But I think if you're in a particular headspace, you'd probably be in a bit of a head fuck. But like for black comedy, you like get your script, you go through, like you don't actually have time to fuck around. Like you get it and then you go through it, like you decide the direction, you decide, like you do the, what's that? What's that one?
Blocking?
Yeah, you do the blocking as you go.
That was me guessing.
Yeah, so you actually just go through the blocking, so you don't have time to like
Overthink it?
Can I ask
foot
a
around.
question?
Yeah.
Can I ask a
Yeah,
question?
please.
So what's the turnaround time in terms of like coming up with an idea and then shooting it on Black Comedy?
We'd get it in. So we're going to start season 4. That's public knowledge. We'll start season 4 in November, but we'll start shooting in maybe probably March, April. But we'll have them locked in by like March, Feb, January. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
But I don't know. Having worked in other shows, it's a bit of a different turnaround, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
Black comedy's a bit, yeah, it's a weird one. But I reckon, like, I think having written your own stuff and then I think it's a different headspace to receiving direction on your own stuff. Like, you have to not be really prissy about it or really like, you actually just have to let it go.
Yeah.
Because it changes. But that is sketch comedy, and maybe it's different in in another show.
So
Did you find that? Because you write it, like you wrote the other stuff ages ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I feel like I've ruined myself as an actor.
Okay.
For working on other shows now. Because like it's like
Not
you said
sure
that you
if you
do.
watched her porn, but
You do. I
ruined.
ruined myself.
Ruined.
It's like on one hand you kind of progressed in this sort of, you know, like if you might pick up a script and go, okay, what's my character's motivation within this scene, and you know you sort of unpack it, someone else's script, whereas when you've written your own stuff, like this season of Get Crackin' is pretty much like we were so busy in the lead up to it that like we just read an auto cue.
Yeah.
It's just like
an auto
and it's all
cue.
in there, but like we've been
Yeah.
writing the scripts for 6 months, but so it's kind of in there.
Yeah, you kind of have like you've got the rhythm in your head because you've written it. Like it took us 6 months to write it, so
see
you've
what
got
it
the
already
rhythm.
looks like.
Yeah.
Like it's already there. Yeah.
But
You've got a sense of it in your head.
also, I mean, different to you because you're an actual legitimate actor. I constantly disappoint myself. Like I have the idea of how it should sound in my head, and then I say it, and I'm like, it's a shame. It's like, oh dear. And then
But we're pretty inflexible when it comes to
if people give me direction, I'm like, no, it's cute.
Like it's pretty much either you might just need to give it a bit more energy, which means that we do it louder and
or faster.
yeah, and they're the kind of the speeds, like we're like a car. And that's about as nuanced as we get with it.
But you do have you don't have to do as much of the performance work as I imagine you do if you're an actor because you have the motivation. You kind of know where, just figuring out the scenes, breaking it all down. You kind of know where you're supposed to be at and the level you're supposed to come in at most of the time. But it is weird. It's weird writing and then also sort of trying to direct anything or writing it, and because you have a rhythm.
I actually think you have to give it up. Like you let it. You give it to, and you're like, and even when they're giving you direction, you're like, that's not how I imagined it.
Yeah.
But it's like you're
then
you're
you've
the
got
boss.
to bring other actors into it. Like it's fine and
It's fine because but if you've been performing those characters in the room, and then other actors come in there, and you're like, oh. No. Although it doesn't happen that often.
Say it like McCartney
say
said
it like
through
I said
the
it.
read-through.
You weren't here. It was 3 months ago. You
don't get it.
I don't expect you to get it, but but it is actually an exercise in letting go.
Yeah, it really is.
And it's
super is.
Like if you're a Virgo like me, it's actually the pits. Just like I wrote this and it landed. Please make it special.
Yeah. I think we've sort of let go of a little bit more this season of that rhythm that we had in our brain of how the show should go. Last year, I think we were kind of a little bit more shattered when things didn't kind of a little bit more tight on it. It's fine if it's not your words. If you're just like, if I'm just directing something
It's like,
else,
yeah.
it's like no worries. It's like I have no expectation about how it should sound, and everything that the actor does is like a delight.
But when you wrote it,
Yeah.
it's like,
Don't you hurt my babies.
this fucking baby.
yeah.
I'd be curious to know with black comedy and of course Get Crackin', which I know nothing about the on-set life of Get Crackin'.
No, because you're definitely
not in the
going
show.
to appear in it
Yes.
early 2019.
Yes, absolutely not.
You are a stranger to us.
We've
Alice
never
Dorr?
met.
Like
Yes.
Alistair's on the show.
It is not going to be your mystery TV debut.
Look at your little hair in that.
Yes. I put a lot of work into this PowerPoint.
It's really good. I like
Did
all
you
the
get
little
the
caveats
haircut
down the bottom.
before
Alistair's
or
mystery TV debut.
I
early
I took that
2019.
silhouette into the hairdresser and I was like, I need to look like this for the joke to land.
I didn't realise that was you up until. Can you just ask the question?
Yes, sorry. I'd be curious.
Sorry.
Certainly with
We got to
black comedy, the
close the gap. We got to be quick with this. So we got to hurry up. I could die tomorrow.
Dear. I'm dying too.
Yeah. What's the question?
We with black comedy, all the writers are also performers. I was curious, how much is stuff changing on set? Are you
Not all of them,
rewriting lines
yeah.
that like fail on set?
Yeah, definitely. Like, you know, some things, you know, you read them out and it's like, that's real weird. Yeah. So definitely, it's like, I think sketch comedy is like a really hungry beast. So you write so much more. Like, we probably wrote a third more than actually made it in the show. The show comes out tomorrow. You should all really watch it if you're committed to reconciliation in this country. No, but yeah, sketch comedy is a really hungry beast. You actually just write like so much more than you expect will ever make it on air. So that's one thing to consider. But when you're actually in it, some things just aren't funny. Like, some things look funny, some things sound funny, but when you have all the people in the room, it's really awkward. They're actually just like, they just don't land. And that's just a thing you have to deal with. Yeah, and I think we probably found that on set. None of my jokes, of course, because I'm a comedic genius, but definitely with other people's work. We 100% found that things just didn't land. No, none of mine, but I think for other people, no, things just don't land. They're just not funny. You're like, oh, this will be hilarious. But you write it and it's just not funny. Like, sometimes black deaths in custody don't land the way that you hope they will. That's funny. No, I mean, we've had a really shit week, but yeah, no, like, some things just aren't funny. So, yeah, it really depends on the room that you have, the actors you have, and like the direction you have. But yeah, all of my stuff was real funny. Yeah.
There's stuff that we write that's definitely not funny that we can then change on the fly, which is good.
Yeah.
You just
Why
go,
you
okay,
have-
that's you
can
can
see
tell
it, you can
you
see
pull the
it
pin on it
happening.
and go,
Why you're
okay,
all
let's-
together, like, you have everyone
Yeah.
together anyway, so you might as well give it a crack. Like,
Yeah.
you're spending the money.
Yeah. And there's some stuff that you like. I know when we went from when we got into the studio with Get Crackin', we suddenly realised there were all these sort of joke possibilities within the environment that we're in as well. So then, you know, so if there's stuff that you find, like, it's important to be flexible as well. So shoot what is scripted, but then do some stuff where you can have a play with whatever's happening in the room on the day, so that you can, you know, you've got options, and that stuff can be. Like, a lot of the camera stuff that we did and just all the physical stuff with Get Crackin' from season 1 was all just stuff that we
put on those dresses, bodycon dresses, and put on those heels and tried to negotiate a really hostile environment. And then we were like, okay, this can be funny.
This is where the actual comedy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, lovely. Okay. I'd love to talk about speaking truth to power.
Okay.
With satire. I was I guess for the Get Crackin' satirisers, the twee energy of morning television while taking aim often at structural discrimination.
And haunted dolls.
And haunted dolls. But that was obviously a metaphor for...
you know.
It was for...
it was...
Did you intend to do that?
1%.
what?
You know what I mean? No, you know, it's a bit of a fucking comedy. You know, like, it's a bit of a lull. Did you intend to make fun of all of that?
Haunted dolls. Oh, no, I mean morning TV.
Yeah, like...
No, it
Not
kind of...
really.
Like, it's
No,
hugely... Like, even before you dudes were doing your thing, we had, like, Sonia who was
Yeah.
like, good for you about being
Yeah,
white.
it's... I don't know if...
Like, did it just present itself?
Well, we kind of were just looking for something that we could do that wasn't just about food, that was sort of lifestyle-y. And the morning TV idea came up. And we hadn't watched a hell of a lot of morning TV
I
since
still
we were
haven't.
kids. And then... But then once we started writing it, we realised how much... Like, suddenly Carl Stefanovic
really
was
blew
the
up.
most famous person
And
in
you're
the
like,
fucking
what
country.
is
and-
fucking going on?
Yeah, like it's, and it became this, and then this season has then, like in the writing of this season, Sunrise has really fucking come into its own.
No, it's like...
They've really drilled down.
Yeah.
They're leaning into it now.
So
yeah.
it's but like if
yeah.
when we set out to make this show, it was like I think we did sit down and have a think about what we wanted to say and what kind of show we wanted to make. And, you know, it was about sort of challenging people's ideas of representation on screen and...
creating a space for just that where stories that you wouldn't normally... And, you know, sometimes we succeed this, sometimes we don't, but, like, stories or experiences that you wouldn't necessarily see in Australian TV, particularly morning TV. It's, you know, creating that space.
Yeah.
For
So,
that.
like, we did think about that, and we're developing another show at the moment. We did a writing workshop on this with a really brilliant writer called Louise Fox, and she was sort of like, what are your was it the imperatives, or what are the...
I can't remember.
It's essentially like, why are you making this show? What do you want to say within this show? And have, like, almost like every scene should be ticking those boxes. And that was sort of a bit of a game changer.
Yeah.
And it made us want to push what we had to say and get in the season, the next season and the final season. It was like, what do you want to say? And so everything sort of is informed by that. And I think that keeps us on track. And so, like, it is, I think, otherwise everything can get a bit wishy-washy if you don't have an anchor of your viewpoint in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, is that kind of the answer?
Yeah. Yes,
Sort of?
absolutely. I guess I was just, curious. You've obviously made, I guess, specific decisions to make, I guess, satirical or political points with this work. Is there, that obviously, I guess, gives a direction, but is there a balance? Is there a line that you have to walk with that where you're, I guess, within an episode making points and then cutting away to a doll?
I don't know if it's necessarily we go, okay, well, we've done the satire now, time for the haunted doll. I mean, I think we have to be truthful about what we find funny, and, you know, I think in equal measure, I mean, I think our comedy works when we are doing satire, but in the same beat, I think also we like really surreal or silly stuff, and so we want to put both in there, and to do otherwise would to just concentrate exclusively on one of the other, one of them, I think, again, wouldn't create the sort of the light and shade that we're intending to create within it. I don't know if we succeeded that, but that's probably what we're aiming for a bit. Yeah. But it is, I think, I don't know what I was going to say.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
lovely. I'll press this thing. Okay. This is for Mayuko because I was...
Yeah, Grace and Frankie, I'm back in.
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely. I did promise you the platform to talk about Grace and Frankie, and I will deliver on that.
Okay.
But I was struck in the email correspondence beforehand not to pull back the curtain on what it's like to produce and host a panel, which I think is the real reason we're all here tonight. But in our email exchanges beforehand, I was asking you about, I guess, comedy and what is the point of it. And you said something very wise, that comedy is important, not necessarily for what it does to people who don't agree with you, but as comfort for the troops.
Yeah.
So if you could say that again, because I found it really poignant. But I guess more to speak to, obviously there's satire that's punching up and speaking truth to power and like taking down those, fat cats in Parliament, those clowns. But then also comedy as reprieve, comedy as escapism. How do you relate to that in terms of your viewing habits, in terms of your writing habits, in terms of what you kind of want your career to do to the world?
Big time. So I'm not entirely sure we watch probably Nanette because we're engaged in the world and we're here tonight. I think it's Monday or Tuesday. It's Tuesday. So we care about the world, blah, 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 blah. But I think personally, so the funny story about this panel, I wasn't going to do it because when Alistair first got in touch, I was like, my dude, I'm really depressed. And so even just getting out of bed is a bit of a thing. And so I was just like, yo, I'm not going to do this panel. But then I was also like, watching shows is really important. But then Alistair was like, can you do the panel?
I wasn't pressuring you. I asked if you knew anyone else who would be good for the panel.
Yeah, and I was like, actually, Black Comedy is coming out tomorrow. It's probably really good. Promotional situation. I'll do it. Whatever. It doesn't matter. No, I think comedy. I think a lot of us who care about the state of the world and who are interested in comedy have been forced to reconcile why we do it in the first place, because that bitch Hannah went in, was brilliant, but fuck her, but it was brilliant. No, I love what she does. No, but I think whether we like it or not, we've actually been forced to engage in the dialogue of the usefulness of comedy. So that's why I'm like that bitch, but also I love her. But she is a mole. So whether we like it or not, we've actually been forced to engage in the effectiveness of comedy in terms of changing the mindsets of people, and whatever is to be said about that. But I think comedy is really important, and I was like to Alistair, you know what, that mole said what she said, but also my mental health dips in and out of human recognition, and I actually think it's really important, personally for me, shows that aren't necessarily trying to tell me anything about the world are really important. And so the example I gave, and I'm kind of embarrassed but also kind of proud that it was brought up tonight, was Grace and Frankie, because it actually, my life doesn't change whether or not Grace and Frankie's aired on Netflix. I would be absolutely devastated if it wasn't, but and I would start up a petition, and I do know people in power who can, you know, whatever. But no, I think comedy, we often think and we're all here on a Tuesday night, so we're like, we're really good people in the world. But we're not. We're really terrible human beings. I think what we do, we like to think that we really matter and that what we do in the world matters. But I think for the most part, like, we go about our lives, and the thing that I have in common with someone is not often the ideology, but it's like, actually, you know what? Like, you're a menopausal white lady and I'm a like young black non-binary person, but we really love Grace and Frankie, and like we both watch that. So maybe that's the thing that we connect on in the world. So anyway, I really care about Grace and Frankie. So I think that I don't need to necessarily care what people watch in the world, but I really care that Grace and Frankie exists. And so I don't care what people do with it. I'm sorry, this is really not making any sense, except for the fact that I do actually care about television. And I care about the fact that a show like Grace and Frankie exists in the world. And I don't need to know how these two very beautiful white women vote. I don't care who they vote for. But I care that a show like Grace and Frankie exists. I care that there are things in the world that exist beyond the person that I am. And I think that's why shows matter in the world, because like, I don't need to vote the same as like Lily Tomlin, and also the other white one. What's her name? No,
Jane
she
Fonda.
has
Looks
a
like
name.
Jane Fonda.
Jane Fonda. I was recently sitting I was accidentally sitting in a situation, in a health care situation, where all these gay men were talking about Jane Fonda, and they were like, I can't get over the fact that she denounced the Vietnam vets, and then they were like, but Lily Tomlin is such a legend. And I was like, I love both of them. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like, it actually doesn't fucking matter. Like, entertainment, this is a point. I'm sorry, I've had a line. The point is, entertainment goes beyond who we vote for. Entertainment goes beyond our values. It's actually just what we, you know, find entertaining in the world. And that's why I'm so interested in comedy, because I'm like, we don't need to agree on who we vote for. We actually just like care about reprieve. And comedy is reprieve. Comedy is just this thing that we don't have to care about. But it does actually, subversively, it matters, and I'm trying to convince you to vote for the better person. But like, we actually just want the world to be better. So anyway, that was a very long-winded way to say, I do really care about the world, and I want people to vote for who I care about. But also, the world is so fucking cooked that, like, even if we don't care about what's going to happen, whether we care about we should vote for someone who wants, like, who believes in solar energy, like, we both care about the fact that Lily Tomlin is such an angel, and if I was a lesbian, that's who I would vote for. Like, we can actually agree on something. Anyway, that was a really weird way to say, yeah, I think this aside, I've been really interested in like the culture wars, and I'm no longer interested in it. I'm interested in what happens beyond ideology. And entertainment, like, I can laugh at Jane Fonda, I can laugh at Lily Tomlin, and so can these old gay men who don't give a fuck about solar energy. Anyway, that was so weird. I really love Grace and Frankie.
Yes. I'm going to watch it now.
These extremely intelligent white ladies. Just before I finish, I do have a list of my favourite white women. So it goes Maggie Beer, obviously. Then it goes, in terms of white women I know, then it goes, Lily Tomlin. Then it goes Jane Fonda. Then it goes the white women that I know. But then it also goes Courtney Barnett. And then it goes like other white women, like these white women. So anyway, back to the thing.
It's the same as my list.
Sorry, that was extremely weird.
No.
I just, That's all of that is to say, like, we actually can think beyond the thing. Anyway, sorry, I'm sorry.
No.
That's a much, like, I think it's a really cool way of, like, that idea of what beyond ideology, I think, is really interesting.
We really need to think about that. Yeah.
Yeah.
What connects us.
The Earth's cooked. We all need to get together.
Yeah. I quite like Judi Dench.
Yeah.
She's in my top 5, certainly.
And also, McGonagall in...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Maggie Smith.
Maggie Smith.
Yeah.
Maggie Smith?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's that book club
I've never
film
been
out
so
at the moment.
attracted
I
to
want to watch that.
Anyway, What's that? What did you say?
There's some book club film out, and I think I'm just going to go watch that. It's about. I know it's going to be. I know it's going to be terrible, but I do just want to see a group of women talk quietly about a book. I assume that's what. I assume that's what the film's about. I'm not sure.
So.
I'm tired.
Yes.
Let me have my pictures.
Sorry, that was so weird. I'm just thinking about the things,
It's a perfect way to wrap up this panel, is talking about a comedy show that someone genuinely loves, and also talking about what comedy can do and how it can make someone feel better and reprieve in this world. And to ruin such a beautiful end moment, we will have a Q&A now. And
right,
there'll be microphones going around. Obviously, we live in a country which is so bad at Q&As. Just nightmarishly bad. These are extra. So I just... if the questions are a question and not offensive, and I guess questions that don't presume your comedic tastes and opinions and sensibilities as neutral, in particular if you occupy certain demographics which historically and currently hold the most power in the industry, that'd be great. But I trust you because this is ACMI. Anyway, please, are there any questions?
There are people asking questions.
Of course.
Always. I'm always so scared there's going to be no one. Hello.
Hi. So to your point about being fed up with the state of comedy on TV versus the unique original work that's coming out online, and aside from, of course, hiring more women of colour, more women and people of colour, what do you think TV executives need to be doing more of, or what do they need to be doing less of to be creating more work that will engage people and create a wider audience and not get dropped after one season?
Well, I do think telling stories that aren't normally told is incredibly important, so that's the main thing. And putting new people in charge, I think, is the other really important thing. Creating pathways for change on that production level is really, 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 really important. And in writers' rooms, but just it's not enough to change how TV looks. It's not enough to change the writing room. It needs to be structural, like everything. But I also I don't think people are ever given enough time to write. I think the development period is always always where people decide that they're going to start cutting costs, and people don't get nearly enough time to develop ideas to the extent that they need to. What do you guys think?
I think that, like, we something that we've observed and then have kind of taken steps to find different paths is like noticing that you can't just, and also watching other people around us who, there's some people who don't acknowledge that there needs to be any change at all, and they're just doing their own thing, and they're just got the blinkers on. And then there's some people who are going, oh no, we'll see how we can, we could just do something different here. But they're doing it in a really cynical way. Like there's people who are just like
shitty way.
Chasing diversity money.
It's
which is really awful.
It's abhorrent.
And then, and so there's kind of, it's not just like, as two white people who are creating stuff, we realise that it's not just okay for us to just kind of ask people to come on board and serve up their experience for us to put on screen. So like there's people who are making really great work who've got really great voices, and so I think they need to be encouraged and given the support and the financial backing to get their stories on screen, and often they will benefit from having people around them that aren't part of that white patriarchal TV structure. And so, like you said, it's kind of top down. It's like, what can executives do? Well, they can maybe step away and get another executive that maybe has a different perspective. So yeah, it's kind of top down stuff as well.
Yeah. What do you reckon, Nika?
Like less Coke. Sometimes that would be better. Okay. But then they don't share as much. So that's a problem. I think sometimes the structure in which television is made and the way in which people get to make money is a bit, it's really flawed. It's definitely not a meritocracy. Which can benefit people who are really good at socialising, but if you're not really good at like socialising, then you aren't good at getting money.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's that thing, the producers. Sorry, did I cut you off? I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. I'm done.
The real game changer, I think, in funding recently has been that they've you don't have to have an established producer involved in some of the funding rounds now. Is that
with some of them?
Yeah.
Still some of them. You're like, the way that you have to apply for money, like we don't even think about. But that's kind of changing.
Yeah, it means that people who don't necessarily have production credits to their names can now apply for funding, and that's huge.
You don't have to sign over your chain of titles, so your copyright of your ideas. You don't have to share it with a producer, which is great.
Like the way that you get money is, like to get money. People are just like, I've got a really good idea, so I'll just apply for this thing. But to get money, you actually often have to have credit, and to have credit, you have to have done a particular. Anyway, it's like often based in it's rooted in this weird idea of meritocracy that doesn't exist. But
it preferences. It preferences so many. Like very kind of specific experiences to get to a position where that's something that you can, that's how.
It's even just weird that admin, it's hard to explain, but the way that we have to apply for administration can benefit particular people.
People who are already rich enough to have all the time to put aside to put together the admin of getting the first round of Screen Australia funding.
They have someone else do it for them.
I didn't even realise the whole admin thing until recently, not the last one, but the last funding round. I was like, oh my God, this is how structural privilege works. It's really, anyway, it's weird. Whatever. But it's getting better. Yay.
I would like to just say, as like a gay guy with muscular dystrophy and leg braces who was brought onto this show as a writer and maybe an actor, who's to say?
You'll have to wait to see.
What the Cates have done with their show in opening a door not just to something appearing diverse and representational and like an actual picture of humanity, but opening it to like behind the scenes roles throughout the crew and creating, I guess, on-set guidelines which protect people who are the most vulnerable, creating protocols where people aren't made to feel intimidated by, you know, like a dodgy sound guy. Not, there wasn't one, but I'm just in...
You know, yeah.
Not anymore, there's not. We fight him.
But yeah, I think certainly creating a set environment which doesn't mean that if someone gets in the door, they don't have a terrible experience where
And
they're
not
traumatized.
indebted, like, oh, I've got to suck a dick because I've like made it this far in. Like, it's actually totally a thing in this industry. Like, you've got to be like, okay.
That's how I got
I've
this.
spoken out of turn.
No,
but,
that's how I got this panel. No, that's not. I've
guess-
slandered ACMI. No, that's
I think
not.
we
no,
both-
you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
like, oh, I've come this far, so I'm not allowed to speak. You know,
Yeah.
like, yeah, you've got to play it.
Yeah.
I think we both, like, this is, you just to take it back to kind of a writer's room, we've both been in a writer's room, I think, early in our career where we've been the only one in the room and we haven't had a friend and our voices have been ignored. And, I mean, I left the comedy industry for nearly 10 years because of my first experience in comedy. And I think we just feel like we have a responsibility to leave it better than we found it now that we have a bit of power.
Yeah, yeah.
Even if only incrementally. Even if it just means giving you your TV debut.
Hey, that's... You saw the silhouette. There's a question mark over that.
I know.
We haven't finished the edit yet, though,
I
mate.
know. Something very different to who I am in real life, no doubt.
No, it's real hot.
So.
I think we probably, if everyone is comfortable, we probably have time for one more question.
Oh.
Lovely.
Or 3 very fast questions.
Who
Very
has
fast
the
questions.
highest hand?
No, well, that's not fair.
We have literally no tips to offer into breaking into the industry.
Yeah.
Hey, regarding comedy writing as a whole, what's our opinion in regards to some of the recent, for example, like ABC comedy, is it Comedy Showroom and the Channel 10 pilot thing that happened a few weeks ago? What's our opinion in terms of like the viability of pilots and you know how everyone sees them and how much the industry actually values those pilots as opposed to just pretending that they care?
Really interested to hear your perspectives on this.
We were part of a comedy showroomy type pilot-y season-y thing. It was just surreal. I don't quite understand the value of that model of kind of
from
elimination rounds type stuff. It was
Does it
very
operate in the
strange.
same way that other writers' rooms work? It's just like, oh, but we're going to make...
Yeah, well,
what's different
we
even?
got development to write the pilot and episode 2.
Yes.
And
then they went, oh, hey, by the way, you're going to be part of this comedy. It's a knockout style type.
Yeah.
That's a show from the 80s. Don't worry about it, guys. Style thing.
It's not an administrative thing. You don't even have to worry about it. It's not even...
It's a great show. It's not great. You watch it, you go, oh, that's dated.
Hang on, so you had your own show, but you also...
But they decided they were going to put it in this thing where we had to vie for a series. Like we were
with
other people who we liked.
With
in this sort
not
of
the catering, but
with Bistro Bleak. And by that point, we were kind of a bit off on the idea anyway. So
Well,
it's not
you
like,
already had your own show.
yeah, it was very odd.
Yeah.
But it's a weird way to make something, like to make the, like after writing a full series of something, and that, you know, you kind of need to know where you're going before you start. And so we didn't know what episode 8 was or episode 3 was. Yeah,
and then you would have to commit to keeping that as your pilot even after you wrote the final things, and you couldn't reverse engineer anything into that pilot because it was already shot and in the can. Plus,
It was good though from like a work experience type.
Yeah, it was. No, it
Like
was for that. We learned how to make a shot.
Yeah, so we went from making a couple of web, Bleak as a web series, and then we made. Have we made catering?
This aired a few months ago. This aired really recently.
No,
that was
a
the one on
while
Channel
ago.
10, which is what
Is that what you're talking about?
Different, yeah. So
a couple.
So we do need to formulate an opinion on that for you as well. I'm
Oh,
aware that we
that's
need
what
to
I
circle back
thought
to that
Old
at
Mate
some
was
point.
talking about, but I was like,
No.
you already had a successful show up on the ABC.
No,
You actually didn't need.
you should have said no.
And that was the learning lesson.
But it's, I don't know if it's how,
like a
if it's
pilot
The proof
beneficial
of
or not.
concept is really useful.
Hang on, like a pilot. A pilot in general. Do you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
like
it's-
Like going through the motions of.
I think it's good to support your script if you're this way inclined to support your script with a proof of concept. Doesn't need to be a full pilot though. I think that's a bit. I don't know if pilots are. Maybe they're more useful in America, but.
What? Hang on,
here.
but what Channel 10 did was really shit. Like.
Oh yeah, well
Yeah. I think that's what you were asking though. Like.
I don't know much about
okay.
the ABC one, so I can't speak to that.
I don't know if I didn't see much of what the ABC did, but I saw, and I had friends who were involved in the Channel 10 thing, and it was really shit. Like, objectively, it didn't invite any new talent in. It was really boring and really dull, and it's hard to see what they did. Yeah, it's actually hard to see what was different. It was really, on one hand, really exciting to see that maybe something different could happen. But then also, on the other hand, it was like nothing happened. So that was the thing. But really boring. Yeah.
Certainly.
But maybe you guys had different experiences.
No.
It doesn't seem like the best way for writers.
It was
to be
hard.
honest.
Heartbreaking.
Yeah.
You have to invest, but also keep one foot out the door because you don't know if you're going to... Which I feel like maybe is something that you do have to do in more of an American model or whatever. But also it was a really expensive way of crewing. It was just so silly.
Yeah, it's not an not an economical way
to create a show.
Yeah.
It's more expensive for some reason to shoot one episode rather than 8 episodes. I don't know. I had it explained to me. I'm not quite sure.
No, the figures didn't work out, but also that it was really dull. In terms of what actually came out. Like, if you looked at the output, it was just all really boring white shows.
So what was the comedy showroom? Was that... What was that?
That's the one we did.
Oh, was it?
Yeah,
It was called...
It was a great experience. And I felt really like
Before, and you said, I don't know anything about the ABC one. I'm like,
no, I
Dude,
thought
that's
it
the one
was
we
that
did.
short form one that was on like ABC2 or something.
I think that's Fresh Blood.
Fresh Blood.
Cool.
And
Which I get that that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
Because then, people can do it in just
Except
10 minutes.
Except for the
Do you know what I mean?
On the money. Yeah, the money's not much.
You know what we mean. Big time.
Yeah.
Make of that what you will.
I think you can just do it online. Like
Just
you
do
can
it.
just
Just
make.
fucking do it online.
You just get a camera. You get in touch with Rick. You no, I'm kidding. What do you think, Alistair? Where are we at next?
Oh, God, I think we have to wrap up. I think it is interesting that if you are going to have that weird battle to the death pilot thing, that they wouldn't be as different concepts as possible.
I would have
Yeah,
thought
rather than like one
fighting in the
kind
mud.
of
That's
perspective.
what I was
Same
hoping
thing.
for.
Yeah.
Well, my pilot, where people do literally fight to the death,
That's gonna be good.
was not picked up.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But I'm going to pitch it to Stan. No,
Sweet.
I think, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our time here in Studio 1 of ACMI. So I would just like to thank so much Nayuka Gorey, Kate McLennan, and Kate McCartney for a fantastic talk. And thank you to the wonderful people at ACMI who helped produce this event.
Thank you. Thank you, all of you, for coming tonight. And Alice has been a wonderful host, and that was a fantastic discussion. I'm sorry for those who didn't get around to your questions. Next week, though, please come back. We have diversity on TV. We're talking about casting. The week after, we're talking about body politics and the moving image. So some great discussions coming up. Thank you, everyone. Good night.